So, Krystal, what makes you feel most vulnerable?
I feel most vulnerable in the moments when I address my childhood trauma and really speak to the things that are still triggering to me today, the things that I haven't really yet quite explored the why. So I am very vulnerable to triggers like when I say jump, you say how high. Because I heard that growing up, and I don't want to make the same mistakes, and I don't want to inflict the same trauma on my kids. So it's that kind of stuff that is vulnerable. Am I afraid to share it with people? No, but it still feels fresh and raw.
Okay, hi.
Hi. We just filmed an amazing episode.
Yes.
Amazing.
We had Krystal, and she is an emotional abuse recovery coach. So extraordinary. The way she shares, the way she helps. I think we both took a few things out of this.
Definitely. And what she's been through also makes you understand why she's doing what she's doing.
This is gonna be a good one. We had such a good conversation. We went over, of course.
Way over. And it was wonderful.
But how have you been?
I've been good. How have you been? I've been really good, actually.
Yeah, your energy has been I feel that you're really inspired lately.
Super inspired. And it's not like anything dramatic has changed in my life. I think it's literally just words or meeting people or energies that I've been encountering that have been really good for my heart and my soul.
Hey, that's a big change.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like I've been in a little bit of a blur lately, not in a bad way, but some good changes are happening for me lately. I started to work out a little bit more, which has I can do my walks every day and I can do that, but I want to get stronger.
Yeah.
And I've been feeling a natural inclination to do so, which is something that is huge for me to celebrate because kind of like Krystal talked about in this episode, she talks about when you want to stop a pattern, one of the worst things you can do is focus on trying to stop it.
Yeah.
I feel like it's similar to me with my exercise or whatever it is, eating healthier, whatever it is I'm trying to do to be a healthier human being.
Yeah.
If you focus on it too much, it almost becomes a roadblock.
Yeah.
And so it feels really good lately to feel it's just kind of coming more naturally. I want to exercise because I'm noticing the effects on me, mentally and physically, just being stronger. So that's been a really big win lately.
That's a huge win. Exercise is a big game changer. Sweating out your stress is, me and Akash do this. We'll look at each other and we'll be like, I'm going for a run. I can't.
I was running, and I love running. You don't know this probably about me because I haven't really been running since you and I have met.
Yeah.
But prior to us meeting, especially through the pandemic, my friend Jackie and I would work out every morning, and I would run. And I swear I was running the other day, and it felt so good. It's been so long, and I literally let out a
oh, nice.
when I was on the treadmill, and I was damn, this feels good. Yes, this is the exertion you need to get that icky energy out of your body. Sometimes you can sit there, you can meditate, you can do the breath work, you can eat healthy, you can go on the walk, you can go to the park, but what you really need is just to aggressively push it out.
Oh my God, next we're going boxing. Have you?
I've never been boxing.
I just need to cut my nails off, but I used to box so much. I was such a, that was my everyday thing, especially when I went through a breakup.
Yeah. Oh, that's
my
badass.
God, it was amazing. It was wild, actually.
I love that. Okay, so we both have wins lately, and I feel it's funny, Natasha, this morning when we were getting ready, she was so-and-so was asking, what is your drama? What was the drama between you and Melinda? Because, in the first episode, we talk about how, we have some co-founder drama, and, that's inevitable.
But we posted a trailer or teaser.
That's where your friend saw it, was we posted, a little trailer on Instagram, because we haven't even, right now, we haven't launched our first episode yet. Soon. But, and I feel we can, dig more into it, but lately, I feel our communication has just been really good.
Yeah.
It's when you're figuring out a partnership or a relationship of any kind, it's figuring out like how the roles and responsibilities best suit the partnership, not the individuals, but the partnership. And I think that was a little bit of a struggle for both of us because we would get into this cycle, and correct me if I'm wrong. I don't want to speak for you.
No.
But like we would get into this cycle where we were both like, oh, I don't know if I'm doing enough. And then you were doing the same, like, oh, I don't know if I'm doing enough. And we're both like trying to people please each other. Meanwhile, we're driving ourselves insane. We're not being honest or vulnerable about what's actually going on. We have this complete made up narrative of the situation. And neither of us actually understand where both of us are in that moment. And I think we pushed through that. And then I think we had to have a conversation just about our expectations with the podcast and how we kind of were both seeing it, because that people pleasing was not allowing us to be more vulnerable and be more real with one another. And so just renegotiating our partnership and what that meant to us. And then
it's so funny though how literally like people pick up on the fun things, the little things, like, oh my God, what's the drama? There's no drama, but
it was hard.
But it was
really
really tough.
We had
it was like
3 consecutive conversations where I made you cry hard. And I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh, poor me, I made you cry.
No,
but like,
and also I'm not going to sit here and be like,
hurt me so.
No,
like,
but I'm also a crier. It's not you.
I know we both are. And if I put myself in your shoes, I would have had the same exact reaction.
Well, that's
I really
good to
do
know.
think.
That's actually really good to know. Because
I mean, for me to come to you and be like, this is how I'm feeling, like, I feel like I want this, and like what you're able to give me isn't enough. I don't know if those are the right words. But that is really hard to digest. And it is only human instinct to become protective or defensive. And sad about that, especially being someone like you or like me that, and James too, probably, that
loves to give
and wants to be great at what we do. We're meticulous about what we do and what we give. And when we do, we are so intentional about it. And for someone to come and be like, oh no, like that must have been so hard to take. So I just want to recognize that you absolutely are enough, and I want to say that to you, like, until the day that we both die. And I love you so much. And
you're gonna make me cry.
Well, you are more than enough.
No pun
and
intended.
I'm so grateful to have you in my life, and how you've inspired me, and how you've made me feel so much more emboldened in pursuing my dreams.
I'm proud of you. Seriously, you didn't believe in yourself enough. And look at you.
I know.
You're fucking shining.
Well, you helped. I appreciate it. I love how we both kind of helped each other in different ways. The way that you spoke in this episode to meeting me and how I was able to make you feel more comfortable in your authentic self and more vulnerable, and being like, actually, no, Natasha, it's really fucking cool to be like, not perfect. People are gonna respect you more, they're gonna admire you more, and I think you knew all of that. You just needed to be given permission.
I think I knew it, but also there was so much fear. You have to understand the society was like, I wanted to be me.
And I will never understand, of course, like culturally.
I mean, I still think that I'm still being a I keep saying rebel by doing this. I still think I'm like, people are still going to say
doing
shit.
This podcast, right? You're getting really real here.
Not just this podcast, but even stuff I'm posting on social. Like I'm going all out in my realness, but I like it. I like this part of me.
I am so here for it.
Yeah.
I squeal every time.
But it's also because I had that friendship from you where I was able to be myself and not have that judgment, because also in a lot of friendships in our society,
and in the beauty industry.
And in the beauty industry. It's not just being Indian or whatever. It's also within the beauty industry. You don't know how vulnerable you can be because you don't know how people are going to perceive it. And like how they're going to judge you. But if you start knowing that you're just amazing, right? And that it's okay how everyone judges you. Everyone's entitled to their own opinion.
And once you start to sprinkle it out there and people start to respond, you get that like boost of serotonin that's like, oh, it like teaches your mind and body like a new pattern or like a new reaction. It's like, oh, this isn't a bad thing. This is actually a good thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I'm really proud of us, and I feel like we're going to have more shit that comes up in our partnership. And like we said in the first episode, we're never going to sit here and pretend that stuff's not happening if it is. But right now feels really good.
It does. It feels like, it's like I said earlier, it's more than a marriage. It's a relationship. It's so solid that
one, it's friendship and it's business.
it's really difficult. But if you do it right, not that I'm saying this is right, but I think we're doing pretty well. Yeah.
Right
I'm not
for us.
Yeah, right for us.
Right for us.
If it's right for you, then it'll go really well. Just be open and vulnerable. I think that's my biggest.
Yep.
And communicate.
Yes.
Basically, all the topics of this interview, this podcast today.
More directness as well. Yeah. So you guys are going
Super direct, like James over there being like,
James is
wrap
like,
this shit up. I don't want to hear it. One day you have to come on,
James, this is
and
our
so people get to
chit-chat moment.
see you, because everyone's going to hear all these cool things about James, and they're like, who is James? Mystery man.
The best. All right. Well, we hope you enjoyed this, and we'll see you at the end.
I already have hit the microphone. This is probably better.
Maybe like up and then we could go down.
I mean, just don't hit the microphone.
Easier said than done, James.
Do you want to do the honors?
Oh, little clap.
You should. Wait, hold on. Let me get a BTS of you doing the honors. Okay, here we go. Both of you are in the shot. Go. Yay!
Great.
Perfect. How dare you call?
Oh, now we have to redo the whole thing. My goodness.
Sorry.
So happy to have you, Krystal. Thank you for being here.
Super excited. I have to tell you guys a really funny story. I just met Krystal.
I know, I love this.
Like literally in 20 minutes we had a conversation, and it was such a wonderful like energy between us two that I was like, oh my God, you need to be on our podcast. And
when your like intuition tells you something, and that's what she messaged me after she met you. She was just like, we were talking about this like 10 minutes ago, me and her, about like what guests we were going to bring on. I met this woman and my gut was just like 100% yes. And I literally was like, completely trust your gut, go for it.
Exactly.
Well, you know, it's like when you throw things out to the universe, right? Earlier the same day, and I didn't tell you this, I was messaging, somebody had thrown something out in a message about a woman who was looking to interview women in like the intimacy space. And I was like, I'm always open. I'm like trying to get my name more out there as I'm growing, because I've been a trauma-informed life coach for a few years now, and I really want to branch out more into like the intimacy space. And the same afternoon, evening, I met Natasha.
Oh my gosh.
And it's just, you know, like the way of manifestation, the secret, the throwing things out into the universe, and it just happens.
I love that. That's what we're all about. Well, actually, on that note, maybe you can tell us all a little bit about yourself, a little bit about your background.
Yeah. So I've been an educator by trade for years, and I feel like education is the thing like I will forever do. Just a matter of, you know, like how, right? And who, and in what realm. So I started like years ago in psychology, and I like wanted to know about the brain, and
I'm already excited.
I know. Wait till you hear all the like bits that she told me. I was like, it was so weird. I was literally creeping out on her.
It was funny. I was thinking about it this morning, and like, as you know, like when I was in elementary school, like I was really good at math, and you would think like math and psychology don't necessarily go together, but like what I loved about math was the patterns. And in psychology, you find the patterns in people.
Yes. I just posted a thing about patterns on the Beauty Manifest Instagram yesterday.
Interesting. I actually missed that one.
Little synchronicities.
So I, you know, like at the time in the world and like where I was living, the next thing was like research. And I was like, I really don't want to research. I just want to help people. And in my life, I found, you know, I was volunteering and working with children, and I was like, I'm going to teach. And I got into education, and I ended up being the person that like another teacher would call and say, there's a kid under the table in my classroom. Can you come help?
Wow.
And they're like, I got you. And I would go in and I would talk, little Johnny out from under the table and acknowledge his feelings and whatever it was.
What a spectacular gift.
Thank you. And I knew, like, that was my motivation, right? It was finding the space to create the social, emotional safety for students and the children so that they could then do what was, like the academic piece,
Sure,
right?
yeah.
And at the same time, I was married. I got married young. And
you share that with Natasha.
We didn't know that. Oh, I don't think we spoke about this.
Yeah.
No.
Literally, we spoke so briefly. I was married too.
How old?
25, also so young.
23.
Oh my gosh.
And now I have this message. I have daughters of my own. My message is like, you've got to be at least 25 before you're even thinking about the person that you're going to spend the rest of your life with, because your prefrontal cortex isn't fully developed until that age.
How do you even know who you are at 25?
Exactly. And I was still living at home with my parents, and I didn't know myself. Which is, we'll come back to this. So anyway, I was married. Through my own self-discovery, turns out my ex was emotionally and psychologically abusive. And I recognized that those were similar patterns in my upbringing. And, my family is still together. My parents are still together. And so and my mom's siblings, they got divorced. So you grow up and you're like, oh, clearly my parents, they have got it right. They've been married for over 40 years. They are a successful marriage.
It's from the outside.
From the outside. Yeah. And then you're like, I had a therapist who was like, you're in an abusive marriage. And you start Googling the cycle of abuse and you're like, ooh,
yeah,
this is happening in the house I grew up in. And you're like, okay. And then I'm like, oh, okay, I have daughters. And if I make this work and I continue in this, they're going to end up in the same cycle. And they're going to end up with the same husband or wife, whatever partner they have.
Yeah.
So you need to break the cycle now.
This is that generational trauma that everyone's talking about.
Yeah. So that I was able to end that marriage. And
good for you.
It doesn't.
Yeah.
Synchronicity, women. But you're never, when you have children with that person, you're never completely free.
Yeah, of course.
And I made it my mission to start helping people, and it ended up really being women who were in a similar situation, whether they realized it or not.
Right.
So I was out there just making known the patterns of abuse, because people see abuse as physical, right? I mean, there was a point in my marriage that I didn't see it, even as I was saying it. He was like, I'm getting better every day. And I was like, but if we were talking to friends and we were like, well, he's hitting her 5 days a week and it's gone down to 3, we'd be like, get the fuck out of there.
Yeah.
And I still didn't see what was happening was abusive.
Yeah.
So
But it's so normal to you. That's what you grew up with.
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
And the other thing that I had realized was my own sense of self wasn't great. And when you are not really feeling good about yourself, and that, I mean, there's we could dig deeper into that too. You will tolerate what is better than like what you're kind of at. And like the phrasing's coming out wrong. Like you won't tolerate anyone treating you worse than you're treating yourself.
But how bad are you treating yourself?
Exactly.
Like, what is your self-talk internally?
Exactly.
And
so my self-talk was just bad, and like he was treating me just better enough than I was treating myself.
Yes.
So I was willing to tolerate it. And then I was, as soon as I started to like treat myself better, I'm like, I'm not going to take this anymore. Yeah. So anyway, that's how I like started to get into coaching. And like back in 2021, I was like, I'm going to become a certified life coach. I'm going to start helping other women with this. And, you know, like I became trauma informed in my coaching, and I realized even through that journey that there is like an intimacy piece in this and like getting to know yourself and communicating. And I've found like an amazing man who, you know, our communication is so strong, and I've learned to become my authentic self.
Yeah.
I feel like I attract so many people now, hence Saturday.
Dude, we have so much in common, by the way. Like, it's crazy.
And I'm like, now I don't want to just share with people like, how do you get through and out of bad relationships, but like, how do you attract the things in life that are meant for you?
Yeah.
And I have all the stories from the people I've already worked with, and how to just like found patterns and what they've been going through. And a lot of it is
just so, I feel like patterns are the basis of the purpose of our life here. It's like our purpose is to find those patterns, break them, and heal ourselves. Yeah. And so much of it is internal.
Yeah.
So much of it's internal, and we get so consumed in this world of like what we're doing, what we're creating, and we want to make the world a better place for sure. But I think everything that we're doing is healing ourselves internally, and this is something we talked about on the first episode of this podcast.
Yeah.
We both related on the fact that we healed ourselves through trying to help others. Like I became a mental health advocate probably before like I had I don't know, everyone has different perceptions of the experience you need or the training or the expertise. Probably a little before like I was ready for it, but it's what helped turbo boost me into healing myself and educating myself. I was like, oh, if I can do this for other people, you know, that self-talk was still so negative and I was still working through that. But if it meant I was helping someone else, it encouraged me even more. And then I just broke through that door. And I feel like that's happened, it sounds like, for all three of us.
All of us. That happened to me with makeup. Exactly that. As soon as I was doing someone's makeup, I was like, oh my God, I can make someone actually say nice things to themselves to a mirror. Whereas for me, I just shit talk myself all the time. But that is also why during my relationship and my marriage, I was treating, it was not like he was bad, but I was just talking, like I was settling. As bad as that sounds, like, because I felt like I didn't deserve enough. I didn't deserve more.
He was just giving you that little bit, like you were saying, Krystal, that little bit more than you were giving yourself.
Yeah.
But what all three of us were giving ourselves before we found ourselves, and we're still finding ourselves.
Of course, it's a journey.
Was just net negative. Net negative.
Well, you know, self-compassion is a really challenging thing for us to do.
Yeah.
And one of the things I do with my clients a lot is they need that reframe. They need the flip of, if you were talking to your daughter or if you were talking to your younger self, what kind of advice, what kind of things would you say to that person? Yeah. And once they're able to do it that way, once they're able to think of it from that lens, then they can start to talk to themselves in the same light.
I did, I think it's called parts therapy, where essentially the talk therapist takes you through talking to your younger self or talking to different versions of yourself, different parts of yourself. And that was so healing. And I actually did it alongside a psilocybin experience.
Ooh, cool.
It was really interesting, but essentially I was able to have these conversations with my younger self, my anxiety self, and my control self, and tell them that I love them, I appreciate them, I'm so grateful for what they've done for me, but I don't need them anymore. Like, I'm in this place where I'm gonna cry.
I know, I've already been emotional.
Where I want them to be free. And so like I went through this visualization and this conversation where I set them free, and like I have this meditative visual that I do where I kind of open up the beach for them, and they walk down to the beach and they get to sit there together, and I sit in between them and we sit there all three together and just take a deep breath and have fun and be silly. And it's just like a moment. It's not like I'm sitting there in my head for
Yeah, no, but that's a great visual actually.
And I go back and I visit them and I remind them
that's
when
nice.
like anxiety or control comes back into my life and I'm like, oh, I'm doing this again. I go back in and I say hi to them. I acknowledge them. I say thank you.
I love
and
that.
then say, go play on the beach.
I really like that because actually a lot of the times that I've done any of these healing practices, it's always like, okay, throw it into the fire. And so for me, that comes,
Sono
it's
does
great,
that,
but
one of her
and
healers.
it's great. But then like, I don't want to throw my little girl, like me.
I see.
So
Right.
my that's actually a really great way to think about it. Is
So
like
playful.
a playful, positive,
silliness. Like I'm trying to bring
Silliness.
silliness back into my life. I'm sure you can resonate with that when you're going through something so deep and so dark and you come into the realization of it. It gets darker.
Absolutely. There's so many great techniques out there. One that I use with my clients is
tell us.
Ho'oponopono.
Yeah.
So it's
I'm not familiar.
It's a visualization technique, and it's often tied to another person that you feel has trauma connection in your life. It doesn't necessarily have to be trauma, but that's a lot of the work that I've done. And you imagine there's a connection to that person on a stage and a string, almost like for me, when I imagine it, it's like an umbilical cord connection. And there's a lot of light visualization connection, and you are physically like cutting a cord, the cord that's connecting you to them. So that person still exists. You're not harming them. You're not throwing them into a fire or anything. And you still exist, but you are now existing as separate entities.
Yes.
And that tie to them is no longer pulling at you, right? There's something that a friend of mine and I always say to each other, and it is resentment is like drinking poison, expecting the other person to die.
So true.
And
resentment is like drinking poison
and expecting the other person
expecting
to
the
die.
other one to die. I love
That's
that.
really
Sorry, I had to
good.
digest that for a second.
It's such a good phrase. And so by like doing that kind of technique, you're cutting yourself that tie between the two of you. You can then and in part of that process too, you are forgiving them. You are wishing them love. You are whatever feels right for you. And like with my ex, by the way, like I only wish him love and happiness and peace, and I do not want any harm to come to him.
Exactly.
I only want joy, and I want him to grow and be the best version of himself that he can be. Like whatever happened in our past was our past.
Yeah.
But was there resentment at some point? Yes. And what was it for me? It was a terrible feeling internally.
Yeah.
And like what you guys have both said, that internal feeling, like that needs to be healed in order to grow and move forward. So with my clients, I want that internal feeling to be healed, because you glow from the inside out.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And I think I've read from you with your mental health journey, right? That you were coaching some of the people you were working with to be more authentic, right?
Yeah, on set. So working behind the cameras at Sephora, my job was kind of, as a marketer, of course, making sure that the talent was speaking to things correctly. But more than anything, my passion was trying to bring out their vulnerability, their rawness, so that our clients could really engage with them, really feel connected to them. And it became my favorite part of the job, to the point where I was like, okay, I want to do this. I want to connect with people. Yeah.
What did you like? Let's talk about vulnerability. I'm like, I am the host now.
I love this.
James is like, here we go.
Oh my God, I love you.
This is like the best.
How does vulnerability like speak to you guys? Like, how is it in your lives? Like,
You're
I
stealing
wanna
our
know,
question.
but I want to know more about you too.
It's so funny because literally after we wrap this, we have this confessional part of our podcast where we specifically ask what makes you feel the most vulnerable to our guests.
Which is
And
why
that's
you're stealing our question.
That's the introduction to this episode.
I can still answer
No,
that
of course
later.
you can.
No, go for it.
Again, just another beautiful synchronicity.
Yeah. It's crazy how aligned this is. Like I just feel like you connect with everyone, including James. I can feel James
feeling
being like
vulnerable, James?
Oh my gosh. No, your stories are aligned.
So how did you phrase that? I asked our question about the confessional, but I wanted to
Well, you were talking
what it means
about
to us, I guess.
Yeah, like how does it speak to you, like in regards to mental health and like doing what you do as a mental health advocate?
You know, one of the things, it's funny, indirect answer, but one of the things that actually indirectly made me really want to pull vulnerability out of people is that I would see so much internet bullying. And because my job was also to monitor the comments and, you know, analyze them, see what people like, what they don't like, so that when I'm creating new video ideas for Sephora, like I have the feedback from our clients. And it made me really sad. Like I saw the most beautiful, the most smart, the most intelligent, talented people get eaten alive, which also set me up for a really good place now being a public figure, because I'm like, oh, this is not about me. This is about them out there, because I've seen the best of the best get eaten. But what I wanted by pulling out their vulnerability on camera, I saw how vulnerability always wins. Like the more vulnerable someone is on camera, the more often there's less that people can hate on in the comments. And I find even in arguments, say with my partner, say with Natasha being co-founders, if we get into an argument, it's like the more vulnerable, the deeper we go into our vulnerability, the less conflict.
So true.
And so it really happened organically for me professionally, and then more so personally, took longer, of course. But when it comes to mental health, one of my biggest things I struggle with is overthinking. And being more direct, being more vulnerable is what quiets those voices. And so it's just presence, vulnerability are kind of just the basis of, I think, maintaining a healthy space mentally for me.
I love that answer. I have so much to say, but I do.
Yeah.
Yes. So I actually didn't realize how much I love like finding that vulnerability in someone and really making them feel good about themselves enough for them to be vulnerable. So I was working with brides all around the world. Every 3 days I was in a different country, and Indian weddings, as you know, I'm sure, are like a big deal.
Several days.
This is actually a topic I really want to touch on because you brought it up in the beginning as well, but we'll go back to that later. But working with brides, they're the most vulnerable. Like their whole lives are set in, like in an Indian family, it's like their family saves money to get their child married. That's their goal. So imagine
Talk about pressure.
Yeah, pressure like is next level for these brides, right? And
This could be the one. Let's get you ready for this wedding.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. But also it's like, no, they literally, it's a year of planning. It's 4 days. It's millions of dollars. It's a lot. I was doing all these high.
Almost like it better be the one.
Yeah, exactly. And then there's no room for failure. And sometimes it was arranged marriages.
Yeah.
So, you know, I can sense things, and I could see like, oh my gosh, like this woman is not happy, but like she's doing it because she has to. And it would break my heart.
Bet.
And they were so young. I had brides who were 20, brides who were 23, brides who were 25. But anyway, when I was working with them, obviously they were so vulnerable. They were like, oh my gosh, I don't know what to do. I don't look good. Or they were so uncomfortable, but also open with me. And when I was able to help them feel confident about themselves, that's when I was like, oh my gosh, this is what I need to do. And I need to just be myself. And being myself, also, I was a bit scared to be myself because I was so much in the like public eye within my community and just my audience and everything. So it was always like I was the rebellious one. I was the girl who got married really young, 25, but then got divorced. And in my culture, that's like super taboo. You don't do that, especially
You've had a multiple day wedding. How dare you?
Exactly. Actually, that is exactly what people would say. Like, you spent so much money on your wedding. It was 5 days. How dare you get divorced?
Meanwhile, that was forced upon you anyways.
Well,
It's
no,
like,
the wedding wasn't. But I mean, yes, and the wedding wasn't. Mine wasn't arranged marriage, but it was a love marriage. We were love marriage. See, like even the fact that it's called a love marriage, like all marriages should be love, you know? Yeah. So even that used to bother me. I'm like, what do you mean love marriage? Marriage should be about love. But no, the love will come, apparently. That was what everyone would say. So to me, I think, to go back to your question, it's been so important for me to be myself just so that I can be a voice for some of these women. And when I was going through divorce, people were always like, I'd have people come up to me, like a lot of these, in our culture, everyone is an auntie and everyone's an uncle. So all the uncles would be like, you are a shame to our society. You're so young and you're getting a divorce. What are you telling young women your age? Like, why are you teaching them that it's okay to travel and work and be a makeup artist? And so because of that, I shut down. I didn't know what to do. And I was like, I can't be myself. I can't be vulnerable. I can't be open. And then I came to LA and met Melinda, who was someone who was very like, she wasn't persuasive in like a pushy way where I thought it was going to be bad for me. It was very much like a supportive friend who genuinely had my back and was like, yo, you're an amazing person. Just be yourself. Even with my brand, she was like, you need to post more authentic stuff that is you.
I got to do with you what I did with talent on set, except from a place of being a very good friend. Yeah.
It was so nice to know that I had that. And then obviously having a partner like Akash is a game changer because he's like, just do you, be
Earth
you.
angel.
I wish I could say that it was all me, but it really wasn't. It was the people around me. But I did work on myself a lot.
And you brought that in.
I did the Ho'oponopono. I've done all of these things, but it's a constant thing that you have to do. You have to work with experts and healers or whatever it may be to get you to be in a point where you can understand who you are, to be vulnerable enough, to be confident in who you are.
Right.
Since I've been vulnerable and been more open, I cannot tell you the amount of people that have been so grateful and have been saying, and I think I've gotten a lot of respect for it from those people who have been like, you know, who in the beginning would have probably said something different. Now they're kind of like,
this is what I mean.
You do
Vulnerability always wins.
It always wins.
That's why I'm like, go deeper, go deeper.
Exactly.
And it's scary.
It's super scary, especially in my culture. Like, you know, when you are in such a small place like Hong Kong, everyone knows your every
can't imagine.
move.
Yeah.
Literally, if I went to poop, someone would know. If I went to, like, everything, literally everything about your life, people know. It's like social media times 10, plus like a society that.
Sounds like my worst nightmare.
So what you're saying, I grew up, when I got to high school, this is my street. My grandparents lived in this house. My aunt and uncle lived in this house. My uncle lived in this house, and I lived in this house.
Okay, so you get it.
Wow.
I get not only that, but like we definitely knew what everyone was doing on the street. And it's such, like, there's not a lot going on. It's Buffalo. It's great. It's like the city of good neighbors. It really is. People are kind and everything. But like, it's not LA, right? Like, so everybody is in everybody's business.
Yeah.
And like, I remember my parents would go out and like, my boyfriend at the time was like on the other side of my grandpa's house, and he came over, and like, I swear my grandpa had binoculars.
Oh my gosh.
I was like, you know, like, I get a phone call. Is Sean over? I think I saw Sean come over your house. I'm like, Sean, run.
Oh
run,
my God.
run. You know, like that's the kind of thing. But
Similar cultures.
You know, like everybody knows everything. But you know, like that, and that's the thing. Like when you look back at childhood and like, again, patterns, and I find this with my clients, friends, myself. It's like, when did we stop being vulnerable, right? So as a mother too. So I have 3 daughters, and my stepdaughter included in that.
And then show your guns while you're talking. You have 3.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, dude.
So look, it's strength from all kinds, right?
Yes.
And you know, that also, by the way, came not from, like, once I stopped focusing on what I looked like on the outside and like how I felt internally, this just came.
That's when it happened.
Right?
That same thing happened to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was like, wait, how many push-ups can I do? Not because I want to see the results, but because I want to feel that, right?
Yes.
So anyway, 3 daughters. And, you know, I've watched my stepdaughter. I became her bonus mom when she was 10. And I could see, like, they're vulnerable naturally, right? So we were vulnerable naturally.
Right. Yes,
So
I see what you're saying.
when does that stop? And when I look at all the women that I've worked with, And, there's been some men too. My business tends to be for women. It comes from a generation of parents.
Yeah.
That were probably uncomfortable with seeing their children upset.
Yeah.
And I don't love when my children are upset because we want to give them so many things. Like I have said many times, being a parent sucks.
Yeah.
I'm like, don't do it. Like, I love my kids, but
Respect.
I'm like, don't. Like, anyone who feels pressure from their families to have children.
Yeah.
And they're not sure if they want to do it. It is the worst job. It is the hardest job in the world. I'm being raw. I'm being real. I'm being vulnerable right now.
I appreciate it.
But I realize why. Because when it comes to love in all of the relationships you've had until now in your life is conditional, no matter what you say. Yeah. Your partner, they excuse my language, but they fuck up and you're like, see ya.
I know.
You kick them to the curb.
I agree.
Your child fucks up, you're going to love them anyway. Yeah. When they go through pain, you feel it deep down.
I feel pain so much already for others. I just I don't know if I could handle it for my own kid.
It's a lot. And you're like, I'll tell you from when they were little, going to the beach is like packing an entire car.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
For like,
I remember that as a kid.
A few hours.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So it is challenging and I love it. But like that, so when I get from the generations before us, who they weren't given the tools for how to handle our vulnerability. Mm-hmm. And I mean, the things that we've gotten were, you're so sensitive. Mm-hmm. You need thicker skin. Or sometimes, and I'm talking about, I've had clients from Russia, from like different parts of Europe, from different, like not just here in America. And their response sometimes was just like, oh, look at little Irina. She's so sensitive. They were not told necessarily to be stronger, but they felt the shame.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that shame was an indirect message to stop crying, stop being in touch with your feelings and your vulnerability, and don't show it to people.
Yeah.
Right? So we naturally just learn to hide it and learn to wear masks.
Yeah.
And so that becomes our defense. And by the way, like I look back at my marriage and with the abuse, whether I realized it or not, it became so much easier to be rejected by somebody for being my inauthentic self than it was to be rejected for being my authentic self. I mean, there were times where I remember, and being a teacher, rubrics are the way you grade things. And I was like, can you just give me a rubric? Because I feel like every time I'm getting a 4 out of 4, you change the rubric on me. And I'm scoring a 0 again. And so it just became easier to just be like, I'm going to be who I think you want me to be rather than being actually me. Yeah. And so what really is strength in life is being who you actually are, because to be rejected, to be pushed away for being you, it takes a lot of strength.
Yeah. I got into sit in the quote unquote negative feelings. I think that's another thing that like we could reframe in our society, is that like sadness or anger or are bad, and it's like, it's inevitable that we're all going to feel the full spectrum of feelings in our life. And if we can reframe those quote unquote bad ones to just be one of our feelings that helps us learn, that helps us grow, that helps us figure out who we are, I think then it becomes less inconvenient for people, right? Because they're like, oh, they're just feeling. It's not like, oh, you're feeling a bad thing, and then I have to sit in that energy and experience it too, and it's inconvenient. So I'm going to shame you for that, and we're going to shut it down.
Yeah. I've worked in education for a long time, and we do something with students from all the way from like TK to 12th grade, and it's ruler, and it's from Yale University. And it is naming your feelings on a scale. It's a grid right? It's from like pleasantness and energy.
Okay.
And there's an app out there now. It's called How We Feel.
Oh,
and
cool.
it can help you either like sit in your emotion or transition.
Yeah.
And there's a vulnerability to it because
Yes.
the students start their day out by saying like, I feel happy, or I feel angry, or I feel depressed, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And they learn the names for these emotions.
Right.
And then they learn to express it in front of a group of people. And then, you can move on, but it's getting it out there, and it's okay to say, I'm here.
Yeah.
And I don't have to be
Yeah.
in this joyous section.
Yeah,
I don't
that's very
have to be
important.
happy all the time. But the thing is, there's a lot of parents who like their goal is for their child to be happy all
Exactly.
the time.
Yeah.
Because otherwise it's bad.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's not bad.
Yeah.
Like we go through a realm of emotions.
Yeah.
And I want to shift gears to something you said earlier about
Yeah.
emotions and vulnerability, rather. You had mentioned about relationships and how when you're vulnerable, that being vulnerable, you end up. I don't remember your exact.
It always
words.
wins.
Yeah.
Like
It does.
If in a fight, like
Oh yes.
vulnerability always wins. If you can lean into it and just reject that defensiveness that comes up, reject that overthinking.
Yeah.
I feel like there's no way that you're not going to come to a common understanding.
Yeah. So I'm glad you said it. So yesterday I had these like plans. I had the day off, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna like prepare for tomorrow's podcast. Right? You always have the best of intentions.
Of course.
And I'm a big believer that things happen for you and not to you.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's a good reframe too.
Yeah.
So my partner and I ended up having a very heated discussion about something. And the first part of the discussion was about the surface level things.
Yes.
And it was heated. And it
You
was
didn't do the dishes. It always starts with something like that, right?
I quite literally, actually, Melinda, quite literally, like I do all the stuff around here,
Yes.
kind of conversation.
Oh my
Well,
God.
I know because we all have the same conversations.
Right.
Yeah.
And funny enough, like this was the way that it looked in our house. One of us was sitting on the couch. The other one was sitting about 6 to 8 feet away on in the kitchen area, arms crossed.
Yeah.
And just like, I don't get, and one person would get up and the other, and then sit back down. And it was just like tense and the whole time I'm like, I have so much shit to do right now. And why are we arguing about this? Like, we know we love each other. This sucks.
Yeah.
And then like cut to, I don't know, however long later. And the next part of it was the vulnerability. And it was, look, I'm sorry. This is what I'm really feeling. This is what I'm actually going through right now.
Yeah.
These are my emotions. And that looked very different. It was us sitting like as close as we are right now on the couch, holding hands, practically tears in our eyes. And you cut through all
Isn't
of
it
that.
incredible?
Yeah.
And it like as I'm building, so I'm also creating a video course for my coaching because
Amazing.
just
So
kind of like
exciting.
you know, like it's all about reaching as many people as possible.
Yes.
Right? Not everyone can sit and do a one-on-one with me. And one of the things that I am talking about is being vulnerable and how, you're so afraid that is going to make people like you're afraid of the rejection. Like people aren't going to want to be near me.
Yeah.
But how it really deepens your connections with
So
people.
much.
And draws people in so much
It
more.
really does.
Right. And like
right kind of
literally.
people, at
Exactly.
least.
I
That
was
was
just going
the
to say the
example
energy
the right
that you
people.
get will be the right people
Yeah.
for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, by the way, how many people have you had in your lives that you've been like, this is a draining relationship?
Oh my gosh. So many.
that just stays so surface level, and like you just can't break past that barrier.
Yeah.
My thing is I just cut the bullshit. No, like it's with people who I feel like, if I feel like it's a question mark or if it's really draining me, I won't put the energy in to actually have even the conversation and be like, let's work this out. Only if I truly feel like this is someone that I care about and is good for my soul, will I do that.
Yeah.
right? And then I'll put all my love and effort into this person and make it work.
Have you been in touch with your intuition for a long time?
Yes.
I think that's where you're really good at that.
But that was because I was in my lowest points in my life. I found myself even more, and I keep finding myself. But every time I hit like rock bottom, something happens where I'm just like, dude, I tap into my intuition and I tap into my heart. I think being really myself and being able to inspire people just by being myself, I've realized that it's actually made me love myself more, which is a big thing for me. I've never said that out loud, right? I've never been like, I love myself. I never look in the mirror and say, I love myself. But I think it's because it's not the outside that I love. It's the fact that I know my intentions are so pure. And like, I know what I'm doing for this world. I know what my purpose is. And so I don't really care if someone thinks negatively of me. So I'm open to being vulnerable.
I could tell within our 20-minute conversation how pure your intentions were.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
That means a lot.
Yeah.
That really means a lot.
Like you're a genuine person who wants to just do good.
And help
Thank
people.
you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's true.
That means more to me than someone saying like anything else.
I mean, your shoes were amazing too.
Thanks.
be honest,
the red
that was
boots.
like,
Thank
oh my
you.
gosh, I love those
Shout out
boots.
London Rag. Love them.
I love it.
Yeah.
But
Krystal,
yeah.
I feel like you've talked a lot about patterns. And I feel like sometimes it's easy to sit down and be like, oh yeah, I can recognize my patterns. But I've had like ahas around patterns in my life. I mean, every freaking day, but like ongoing. And I'll look back and be like, oh yeah, I know what my patterns are. And then a new one comes up and I'm like, wow, I haven't recognized this. Is there a way that you suggest people can recognize their patterns? And when you can tap into seeing what those are, how you can kind of tackle stopping them from happening?
that's
question.
a really great question.
It's
Really good
honestly, I
question.
would just personally love to know.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm a really big fan of journaling.
Okay, fair.
Really
Yes.
big fan of journaling. I'm going to be the first to tell you, I go through my own cycles of
I know. I
off
get
and
good
on
at it,
journaling.
and then I stop, and then I get back to it.
Yeah.
and I totally feel you.
But I will say, like, by keeping a journal, you can easily go back and recognize
Oh, of
those
course,
patterns.
because you're just referencing
Yeah.
old chapters, right? Yep.
And then also by doing it and keeping it brief, then it's not like digging through a whole bunch of text that you've written. So like, I keep separate journals. So like the one is that like monkey mind journal, right? Like that's just like
write whatever's
let it
coming out.
come out. It's like, I think of, this is so nerdy, but like I think of the Harry Potter where like Dumbledore takes the wand and it like takes the memories out and puts it in the pensive, but like it's no longer living up in my head. Like,
Oh, I
that's
like
my
that.
monkey mind.
I like
feel
that.
Yep.
But the other one is that like starting the morning with, you know, that 3 minutes of, and I'm like, I got this from the 5-minute journal, if you guys are familiar with it.
Yeah, she gifted me one.
I love that journal.
It's such a good gift.
And it's like here are the things I'm grateful for, and here are the things that I could do better. And at the end of the night, and it's just those simple things. So it's easy to just look back and say like, here's my pattern. Like here are the things that I was struggling with. Like here are the things that I can improve on. The second part of your question was
Like how to tackle it. Or how to stop them.
The worst thing that I've found for my clients and myself is trying to stop it.
Oh.
In those moments of like trying to stop it, there's a buildup, right? There's, and I'm going to talk shit right now. And
Bring
quite
it. Go
for it.
literally
Bring
shit.
it.
Go for it.
So back in the day when I was getting my psychology degree, you know, you talk about your parasympathetic and your sympathetic nervous system, and there's like the 3 main parts. And then after I graduated college, the 4th part that wasn't in the books then is the enteric system, which is the gut-brain connection.
Oh, okay. Now you're speaking my language.
Yeah.
Okay. And that one, like every time in my life and everyone that I talk to, and they are holding in their feelings, they are trying to stop that pattern or whatever it is that is like emotionally blocking them. They're also fucking constipated.
Yeah.
And I like this
Yeah.
literally happened to me. And I was like for 2 weeks, I was not going to the bathroom.
An actual physical manifestation.
Physical manifestation.
Yeah.
And I was like, I was trying to hold my shit together, and I was holding my shit together.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
And as soon as I was like, okay, I sat in my car and I cried, and I just let it all out. And I processed my emotions, and I dug into like, I was like, I don't have time. I'm like you guys, like I'm a businesswoman. I'm like, I have so many things. I'm like, I coach rowing and I do this and like some of it's for joy, but like you're like, I'm doing so many things.
Yeah.
I don't have time to cry. I don't have time to get to the why. And I was like, I need to make time
It's more
Exactly.
important than anything else.
right?
Yeah.
So how to stop the pattern? You don't. You have to
Feel the
process.
pattern.
You have to feel it.
Yeah.
Because then once you're feeling it, the pattern's usually because you're trying to stop something. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I mean, like, I get what you're saying too. There's like some patterns that like maybe the pattern itself is like blocking your emotions, right? Like that can be the pattern. And I think that you're just like, okay, hold on. I need to feel my emotions right now. I think just like letting yourself process
Yeah.
whatever you're going through naturally breaks the pattern most of the time.
Yeah, lately, I feel like I maybe mentioned this to you, Natasha, but I've just noticed with my partner, Jake, and in my relationships in general, I crave love and attention. I crave physical touch and words of kindness and support. Like, I'm a very touchy-feely person. I'm a very emotional, sensitive person. Definitely identify as highly sensitive person. And I'll like vocally ask my partner for this, right? Here and there. Not always. Sorry, Jake. But I've gotten better about asking him for it. But I've noticed, even though I'm asking for it, I create this barrier to entry and I don't allow it in. Like, it's an energetic thing. Like, he might even try to give me that in moments where I'm struggling, but I'm almost more irritable and I'm like shutting down the help. I'm shutting down the love and attention. Yeah. And I've been thinking on this pattern a lot because it happens in different relationships. And it sounds silly, but like as a kid, when I would get really upset, and I don't know if this is because I didn't have, I mean, I love my parents and they were probably there for me, but talking about it, just a different generation, I would go to my cats. Like, I would cry to my cat. I would talk to my cat. I would hold my cat. Oh. And like, to this day, I have 3 cats now, and they are my emotional support animals. Like, they are the thing that brings a breath of life back into my body when I feel like there's nothing else left inside of me. And I'm realizing that pattern and how I'm really leaning into like my animals and how I need to like let other people in. Yeah. And so in thinking about that, you're exactly right. I am in a way not allowing myself to feel what I want. Yeah. And I'm creating my own barrier to it, and it's become this pattern. And so I guess I was just trying to figure out like, okay, how can I break this? How can I allow more in? And it's just like little baby steps. But in hearing your advice, it's almost more like maybe I need to just sit in the fact that I didn't have the love, support, and comforting that I needed as a child, and to like process and feel that and mourn that so that I can like go forward, allow it.
Yeah. A lot of times we don't want to feel the emotions from the past, right? We don't want to relive that.
Yeah. And there's
that fear, and that's why you control yourself, I'm guessing, right?
Yeah.
There's so much fear in going back to that moment of like,
but it's also subconscious. Like, until I had the aha, I was doing it and I hated it and I was frustrated. And I was like, why aren't you loving and supporting me as a partner? Yeah. And I was like, oh, I'm not allowing this.
But you touched on something else, and it's what it sounds like what you're doing really well. And that's the communication.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And it also, I feel like the vulnerability and the communication are hand in hand.
Yes.
So in order to be able to communicate with your partner, you have to express like what it is that you're feeling.
Yeah.
And being vulnerable with it. I mean, I look back at my past relationship with my marriage, and we were terrible with communicating with each other.
Yeah,
Terrible.
exactly.
I mean, we would
Most
go
of us are.
Communication is the most important thing. Me and Natasha have been working on this so much in the last 3 weeks.
Jake and
alone.
I needed therapy for it. Like we needed, and this therapist helped us, and we've come a long way. But just most people, like I thrive on communication. I take pride in my ability to do that professionally, but personally, oof.
Yeah, it's hard.
It can be a challenge. And if you know what you want and need for yourself, like a lot of it, I really believe that it stems from knowing yourself.
Yeah.
Right? Feeling comfortable with yourself, loving yourself, as you mentioned before. Because if you can feel comfortable with your authentic self to begin with, then you can communicate. And it's not coming from a people-pleasing place, right?
That's true. You know, one thing actually I want to touch on is something that me and Akash have just been really focused on, because obviously as all couples, we go through stupid fights and big fights and small fights, even in relationships. But one thing that's really been programmed into our brain in the last couple of weeks, we went to this crazy entrepreneur retreat and we met a bunch of people, and we realized that perception actually creates your reality. And
Well said.
And like that has been something every time we look at each other when there's something going on, we'll go perception.
Expand on that.
So it's like sometimes you think it's an overthinking thing. You think that maybe this person is mad at me, or maybe this person is, or whatever. If I have a drama that happens, a malfunction, and my perception is, damn, this is so frustrating. This is so annoying. Like everything starts to crash at that point. And then you start to think of all the things that are crashing. Like remember when I had multiple things, like my hair situation got tangled, and then I burnt my boob with a
Physical
booby tape.
manifestations
Like all these weird things.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God, all these bad things are happening to me. And Akash was literally like, perception is creating your reality. So stop thinking about it like that. So we tell each other this. And as soon as we think about, and it's almost like, not being in a bubble, but almost thinking like, let's just think of how this could be a positive change in your life. Or like, how challenges sometimes can be something good for you. So that has really been helpful.
What doesn't challenge you doesn't change you.
Yeah. So I started to think about my perceiving things in a more positive way, but not in a stupid way.
And not in a toxic positivity way. Like you're being realistic.
I'm being
about
realistic
the situation.
about it. I'm just trying to be like, no, actually the intention for this was this and not this. And it's not always, and also being someone who was super insecure, I have the tendency sometimes to overthink, oh, maybe this person thinks I'm shitty and that's why this is happening.
She and I can go in a cycle of that with one another for days.
Yeah.
We had to check ourselves early in our relationship and be like, we need to stop stressing that we're not doing enough for one another.
Yeah.
It was just a cycle between us.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Especially in friendship and business partnership or whatever, right? You're gonna feel like, oh my God, am I doing enough? Am I okay? Does this person think negatively of me? But since I've switched that mentality, I really do think it's been a lot more positive for me. So I feel like going back to what you were saying, maybe that could help if.
Yeah.
I don't know how that could help, but she's the expert. Yeah, but this whole perception into reality thing has been, perception shapes your reality. It's actually been really helpful recently.
Oh, it's a great way of putting it, right? Like I believe in all these like little adages or phrases that help you just reframe the thinking. Because and there's so many different ones that work for people in different ways, right? Like the what doesn't challenge you doesn't change you. I mean,
I love that.
To me,
It helps me all the time.
and I like you can't spell challenge without change.
I like how you said it
Like
too.
I'm this is just like it works in teaching. It works like what all the things. And I use it too, like in coaching, right? And in physical, like personal training too. I mean, like literally the other day, I was like,
Are you a personal
Yes,
trainer?
I wanted to get onto that
Oh
topic.
my gosh, dude. Yeah, like you were saying.
She's a rowing instructor.
Well, I heard she dropped that.
Oh, thank you.
But and also like no wonder, like you were saying, strength from within, strength on the outside. Like
Yeah.
How cool.
She's like, that's why I said show her guns,
Yeah,
because you're so
hell yeah.
inspiring. I'm going to go to her rowing class.
I love this.
Yes, you both should.
I would love to
Westlake
try.
Village. It's on the other side of the valley, but it's worth the drive. It's a lot.
I would
of fun.
love to try it. We should do a little date.
Let's do
Yes.
it.
But it translates internally and externally. Like the other day, I was like, I'm not saying that I need to look different, but like, sometimes a little extra sugar, all that kind of stuff. And I was like, why am I not seeing a difference? I'm like, because I'm doing the same exact thing that I always do. I'm not adding the extra challenge, whether it's weights or like bumping up my cardio or like whatever it is.
Yeah.
And like, why am I not seeing a change? Because I'm not challenging myself, right? And so in life,
Interesting.
sometimes you are just, the universe is like, I'm going to challenge you. Fuck this challenge.
The universe says that to me a fuckload.
Right? But like remembering
yeah.
that little phrase, you're like, well, there's a change coming. Whether I asked for it or not, and I probably asked for it.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
so like that whole thing like about perception. But one of the things that you touched on when you were talking about the perception shapes your reality and like the way your relationship was, is the piece that what I gathered was missing is that there was a lot of internal dialogue going on and assumptions. And
Yes. I'm like
that's
queen of assumptions.
again where that communication comes in.
Yes,
right?
exactly.
Like when my partner and I got together in the beginning, I was like, I'm gonna over communicate with you.
Me too. I did the same with Akash on the
Right?
first date. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, good for you.
Yeah.
I'm like, here you are, what, like
Post-divorce dating. That's
you
what
learn.
happens.
Well, and by the way,
There's
not
life after divorce, guys.
and
Especially
it's
Indian women.
so
Please
much-
stop
really
stressing.
great life.
Yeah.
it's so much better. Like so much better that time. As long as you're learning and
Yeah.
growing, right? Like shit happens, it knocks you down, but you
Yeah.
have to like learn from that and
Yeah.
and learn how to get back up. And by the way, if you're in a relationship that feels shitty, it probably is. No good marriage ever ends in divorce. So congratulations.
Yes,
if you have divorced, just look at it that way.
Yeah.
So that communication afterwards, I mean, that over communication, we've been together 7 years. And I still, like, yesterday I was like, I just want you to know, I don't think that you did anything wrong. He's like, I know I didn't do anything wrong. And I was like, yeah, but I want you to know that I know.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
Right? Like, I want you to know that
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
And because there's nothing good that comes out of assumption.
Yeah.
And I'm an overthinker. I might not come across that way.
Yeah.
But I've learned to grow out of it, right? And my
We're
husband
learning.
told me, he was like, look, like we talked about this, I don't know, this morning, something. We talk a lot.
That's so cute. I
A
love
lot.
it.
And one of the things that I said, I was like, here's what was going through my mind yesterday. I was like, I had shit to do, and I could have just kept doing it.
Right.
And let you feel the feelings that you were feeling. And I am a professional former people pleaser.
Yeah. I say
All
people
three
pleaser
of
in
us.
recovery.
Yes, that's a great one too. But I was like, I'm going to own professional on
Oh,
this
absolutely.
one. Absolutely. And I was like, so I felt like if I don't ask him about his feelings, I'm being really selfish right now. And I was in a relationship and like for most of my life where I was told like I was selfish or I was this
Yeah.
or I was that. So I was like, okay. I told him, I was like, I needed to ask you how you were feeling or if there was anything else that you needed to say so that I was acknowledging your feelings because we are in a relationship and we are partners and I do care about your feelings. And he was like, the result of this whole thing was, he's like, you could have just let me go. You did not have to ask me my feelings because we have established a relationship that if something's bothering me enough, I will tell you.
It needs to be your responsibility.
Right. And he's like, because we've established this already.
Yeah.
He's like, so there's also a third layer besides vulnerability and communication, but trust.
Yes.
Like trust
course.
the other person will speak to you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Although and this is not toxic positivity. This is seeing things 2020. I said, so if I wouldn't have asked you though, I said, would we have gotten to that vulnerable place later where we were holding hands and we were like
And
really
that
into
challenge for
it?
the change.
And he was like, probably not.
Yeah.
So,
Yes.
It was the fast track version.
right.
Also.
We just sped the whole thing up.
Which is good.
It's not all like it happens for you, not to you. And again, great content for today's podcast.
Yeah. So it was communication, vulnerability, and trust.
trust.
3 very important things in every relationship.
Right. So
Thank you.
You can over communicate with a coach.
I over communicate.
But also trust
Yes.
that if something's going
Right.
on, he will tell you.
That is my biggest problem in life. Trust.
Yeah.
Actually, I'm still working on trusting people. And so this whole perception thing has really helped me because I'm like, but why do I think so? Is it because I don't trust myself or I don't know what it is, but I have trust issues.
Yeah.
So that's what I need to work on.
And we get to your why. We can talk more.
Okay.
We'll find out where
we'll
that comes from
yeah.
and how to move
And
forward.
pluck it out.
I love it.
I need to work on that. Yeah.
We met for a reason.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, for sure.
Obviously.
We met for 20 minutes. Okay, I have to say.
This is such a
how
good
right was I about
conversation.
her?
I told you. I was like,
I know,
have full
she
trust
knew.
in your intuition.
I was like, but are you sure you just trust me? Like, how do you trust
Absolutely.
me?
Absolutely.
So yeah, she's amazing.
I feel like a lot of people who are listening to this might end up just by, our conversation, the episode, your profession, they might be people who are in relationships where they're not in a good place. Maybe we can end the episode just by, and I know this is very circumstantial and everyone's different, but do you have a piece of advice for someone who might be in a relationship that feels really shitty and they feel like they can't get out of it? They can't, find that light at the end of the tunnel.
There is always a way out. No one is ever trapped. No one is ever in a place where they cannot get out. It is a matter of time and setting yourself up. So I would reach out to whatever resources that you have. Yeah, absolutely. But what I mean, I don't know the severity of whoever's listening, their circumstances.
Yeah.
All different.
So I would say that do it in person. Do not put things in text messages, depending on how scary your situation is.
Very smart.
And
You mean when you're asking for help?
when you're
do it in
asking for
person.
help, do it in person. And start telling people what you're going through. So, and there's a lot of resources that are out there. So same thing, like if you want to research the resources for, like I'm going down the road of like women's shelters and things like that. If you're in that kind of situation, go to a public library and use their internet.
Okay.
So that you don't have records on your computer, depending on how safe or unsafe your home environment is.
Yeah.
But yeah, start telling people, because a lot of times on the surface, there are certain relationships that look like everything is normal.
Yeah.
And because you're not telling people what's going on behind closed
No one
doors,
knows. Yes.
people don't know, or they don't know if they can believe
And maybe
what's
you
happening.
don't even know because
Yeah.
you're not getting that feedback, right? Like
Right.
you were talking about your situation. You grew up with that. It was normalized. So
Yeah,
why would
exactly.
you feel like that's not okay?
Yes.
Until someone else is like, hey, actually, that's not how my relationship
Yeah.
is. That's not how, you know.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, that's actually another question. Like how do you, because a lot of the times you think that you just deal with it because you think that this is acceptable, right? Like, oh no, it's fine, it's fine, it's fine. How do they understand when it's a problem for them?
Asking for the help, right?
There is asking for the help, but there are exercises on getting in touch with your gut.
Okay.
And I think one of the simplest things that you can do is, if you have a feeling about something, close your eyes and check in with where you're feeling it in your body.
Interesting.
A lot of times we are in our heads overthinking.
Yeah.
And we can rationalize and tell ourselves, like, this is why it's okay. And we have a lot of limiting beliefs that will get in our way. But when you really like find a quiet space and you close your eyes and you start to see where it is in your body that you're feeling that feeling, like, you will get that literal gut feeling And it will tell you, like, this is a bad situation or not.
They taught that a lot in my clairvoyance kind of intuition training, where you get into a meditative state and you really find it in your body. So then it becomes like second nature. You can feel it again when it happens over time. That's really interesting.
Yeah. I don't know what time we have, but I really want to hear more about that.
James's face. He's like,
I think we have a lot more conversations to have between the three of us. But thank you so much for being here, for sharing your story. Like, talk about vulnerability. You are an absolute vulnerability professionsional.
Yeah.
So thank you for what you're doing, for helping others, and for sharing with us.
also, how do people find you if they want you to guide them?
So Instagram is the best way. You can reach out, DM. I'm like working on my website. So it's at Complete Coaching with Krystal. That's with a K, Krystal.
We'll have you tagged everywhere so they can find you easy.
Perfect.
That's amazing.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, James.
Thanks for having me. Thanks, James.
So I just feel like my word for this episode is powerful. Like, she talks about being, or maybe it's strength, but I like the word powerful more for some reason, but strength. She talks about being strong on the inside and the outside, and how that strength within manifested externally. Like, I think that's so cool. Obviously, patterns was huge in this episode, and just noticing patterns. I think that's, like I said, like the purpose of living is to notice your patterns, break them.
And it's difficult to do so. So it's not like you should instantly be able to notice it. You really have to tune into yourself and communicate, trust, and be vulnerable. Those are the three key things that we learned from this episode.
We could have so many more conversations with Krystal.
Oh, yeah.
And I do want to go rowing.
Oh my gosh, we're definitely going rowing.
My sister did rowing in college, and she said it was like so amazing. She still does it as a hobby occasionally. It seems just so meditative.
Yes, but she explained the class to me. It's basically like a soul cycle, you know, where it's like a party and then you're rowing, and I'm like, whoa, that sounds like a
Let's
vibe.
definitely see if she'll do a class for us.
Yes,
That'd be amazing.
for sure.
Well, we hope that you loved Krystal as much as we do. Like, let us know in the comments if you have questions for her.
Yeah.
For us, if you want to see more people like Krystal, or even like if there's a topic that we touched on that you want like a whole episode on, like, let us know.
And also, I'm sure a lot of you will have questions for yourselves that you maybe don't want to go public about or write on our comments. Yeah. So DM Krystal directly. She will help you. She's so sweet. DM us if you have anything. Yeah. And we'll also post like stuff on our Instagram about this. So even the rowing or whatever you want to know.
Yeah, absolutely.
Really cute.
Subscribe if you haven't already, just so you can know when we have new episodes. You're probably already following us on our socials, but that's another great way to get a notification when we have a new episode. And just thanks for watching. Thanks for supporting us in this. It means so much to us, and this is just such a privilege and such an extraordinary experience, and we're really grateful that you're along on this ride with us.
So excited to see how excited you guys are for this podcast. I am so excited.
Bye.